welcome, Amaro. Is this the first time you're joining us? And am I pronouncing your name right? Huh? Audio issues? Or can you turn your mic on? All right. No mic then?
Yes, I have a microphone.
That's great. Hey, it's nice to hear your voice. Where are you joining us from?
I come from Veracruz, Mexico.
Ah, right. We were chatting just yesterday, I think.
Yes, I was asking you about what is Meshmate. I couldn't read about it yet, but I looked into it later
Sure,
today.
sure. Great. The link should be self-explanatory, but if you still can't understand something, please get back to me. I'll talk your ear off.
Thanks, Riti.
No issues. All right, we'll be starting in about a minute. We're running a little low on agenda items today, so if anybody has anything to add, please go ahead.
Yeah, if we could we add SMI to this topic, to the discussion?
Sure. I was just told that we cannot do the demo of the Nginx adapter today,
Oh, okay.
so we could really use another topic.
Yeah, actually, all the acronyms start to blend together, but this one is SMI. So not Nginx, but SMI.
Yeah, okay, sure. Anything particular about SMI or just a general discussion?
Yeah, the Dhruv is with us, and you could put his name next to it.
Ah,
It'll
sure.
be SMI conformance results is the.
All right, sure.
Wait one sec, I will share my screen, I guess.
Sure, go ahead.
If I want to talk about it, let's show everyone what we are talking about.
Nice, very good. Actually, Dhruv, just as you go to prep, I know Shriti is lining up the agenda. So just, does anyone else have agenda items for today? Other things to talk about? Who else do we have? Romero, Adina. Nice. I guess really briefly, Homero, thanks for doing some of the translations already. Okay, got it. Thank you, Amir. Oh, wow. Homero, is there a particular area of Meshery that you consider you might be able to jump into? The front end, the back end? Yeah, DevOps. Nice. All right. Okay. Good. I was just trying to think of topics to talk about today, and since you're here, we might talk about some of those. So, okay. Yeah, it takes a little while to. Cool. Okay, so now I'm having a one-way audio conversation. So sorry, I apologize, Shriti. I thought I would just make sure that you were able to accomplish your mission of setting up the agendas, the agenda.
No issues. Uh, Dhruv, you can go ahead with yours.
Well, I just wanted to ask is everything is okay because you're gonna present it in like uh, 3 hours in the SMI call, right? So I ran a test like half an hour before to check if things are working properly. It's it is supposedly working properly, except the percentage passed is yet not fixed, which I think I will get back to Abhishek and we will check what we can do before the meeting itself. And yeah, that's all.
Nice. Yeah, Drew, thanks for pulling this up. I figured that we should drive it home in the SMI call later today that, hey, here's the tool. Here's all the orchestration that we got to use a different term, but here's here's what the conformance test suite looks like currently. We only have so many tests defined, assertions defined. And actually, Drew, from my part, I'm slightly confused as to the count of assertions. I didn't realize we had that, like, I don't know that we have that many tests defined. I wonder how we're counting those.
Uh huh.
The way to explore that is,
Learn verify, right?
there you go. So for context for everyone that's on the call, and actually, Anirudh, this might be something that's of interest to you, or that you might be able to help us get it across the line. And that is that there's 7, I think, service meshes that claim compatibility with service mesh interface with those specifications. There's 4 specifications, each of which have a number, excuse me, a few different features. And we've written tests that validate whether or not when you invoke a feature, basically when you interface with the SMI API, these tests will validate whether or not any one of those 7 service meshes respond in kind, like respond like they should. And so traffic split is a good example of something that, like, it's a great example of a reason why we would use Meshery, is because you've got to spin up 7 different types of service meshes. There aren't many, any other tools that do that. You've then got to generate a bunch of load consistently, and then measure that load and look how the traffic is being split. So hence, Meshery is a perfect tool for this stuff. You've got to collect up the results, transmit them back, guarantee their provenance.
Don't you think the question is why would I need to spin up 7 service meshes?
You don't. As an individual user, you don't. That's not the use case. The use case here, then actually all the use cases are written down in the unlike normal, the use cases are actually written down here. 7 service meshes, even for a service mesh team, that's not exactly the use case either. It's not spinning them all up in concert, but individually. So you need a tool that is capable of spinning up 7 different service meshes, not necessarily concurrently, but individually. So that each team can use the tool to run the tests and verify their conformance and send in their results. Right now, we only have a certain number of results defined, and that's actually, tests defined. And so if you go back to Learn Layer 5, the GitHub repo, the way that we're counting tests are here. So, and for each of these specs, traffic access, traffic spec, we've got 7 or 8 or 12 tests. So if you look at the first assertion, part of what we want to ask of people is to help define what these assertions are. And Shriti, will you ping Abhishek and ask that he join? Because
Sure.
you need to. Okay, thank you. So these assertions don't cover the entire API surface area. The other thing that Meshery does is deploy a sample application, that app B, app C, and then it defines the weight split. So that's not all of what traffic split does, though. And so what we want to do is ask those people on the call, we want to demonstrate this to them, ask for participation, see who wants to be first up. We're going to start to publish the results. Anirudh, the reason I called your name out is because right now there's a bug, I would say, or a feature that we should just remove, which is in the SMI results report right now inside of Meshery, there's a percentage passed column, which is intended to total up the 30 tests that are there right now and give an overall percentage. Now, I assume that that calculation, or I think the assumption is that that calculation is going to be done on the back end. But Drew, that may be where the disconnect is that maybe maybe like, I don't know if we accounted for that in how we're storing the results. If we're pre-calculating the total passed, it could be something that you would do here in the UI as well. It's just like,
No, I don't think we have enough data to calculate it in the JSON which we are passing. But uh, Abhishek had some ideas before. I didn't talk in particular what he had in mind, but he has some workaround, if I remember correctly.
I see what you mean, that like where the 12 assertions are, some of them are failing, but you're not quite sure if it was, or, or do you have a level of depth of detail in as to whether or not each one is failing, which one is failing, which one's
No.
passing? Okay. Okay. And then the reason too is kind of an interest. Yeah, I don't know. We have to.
Are we ever going to show the particular assertions which are failing in the UI itself?
So Abhishek just joined. So Abhishek, there a couple of questions around this, and that is there the tests that get run today, they remind me of the some of the tests may pass, like of the 12 that are there, 6 of them may pass, the 7th might fail. Not all of them are executed in serial though. So like it's possible for, I think, 2 branches of the 12 tests, of the total 12 tests, there might be 2 parallel sets of tests going on. And so you could actually technically have 2 failures. And so 2 reasons for failure. Does that sound right?
We don't segregate based on that currently. Uh, so, so, so that right now the logic behind computing the result of if it is failing or passing, or if, what is the capability and what is the percentage passing, all of these are just very blunt. It is not properly, as in it's just it's just taking average of all the assertions that's been done. So uh, it's not accounting for the the set of sets that run in parallel or the independent ones. It does not care about that. Right now it's very blunt.
Yeah. Um, do we have that level of granularity? Or rather, are we able to retrieve that level of granularity out of
No,
the?
we don't get it from Curtle, so that's the reason
Okay.
we'll have to figure out a way to get that.
Okay. Do we have but we do have the ability to identify the particular, like the particular test that failed, which no traffic matches for kind, traffic target inversion. That's
Yeah.
pretty,
So the reason that comes in, that needs to be rewritten. Basically, that's the result that comes from the Curtle directly itself. So we need to rewrite that a bit.
The percentage passed was the intended design for that to be calculated on the back end or here in the UI?
On the back end. Everything happens on the back end.
Okay. And so we just, that's just a work in progress.
Uh, Ideally, it should be working. So basically, there were two discussions that went on parallelly. So we had planned on putting certain features, and then after a couple of comments on the SMI doc, we planned on removing them. So some of these, like the capability, we planned on not having half. It's either none or full, and uh, and the percentage we try to get rid of. Like we plan to get rid of the percentage. So all of these are on the doc. It's yet to be implemented, or it's yet to be updated on the code.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Well, maybe I have other questions, but it'd be good to follow up with you and Drew maybe after the call or whomever is interested, just as a separate item after the call, because my questions will get really boring, I think, fast for everyone else. So, but guys, I gotta say, like, hey, that by the way, I don't know if all of you know, the community here is giving 2 talks at KubeCon, and we're canceling our Service Mesh Con talk. At least I hope that we are. And we're also hosting a booth specific to SMI, actually. And so we're doing a lot at we're doing some stuff at KubeCon. And the reason I'm mentioning this is to say that work right there that you guys were looking at, that's demonstrated twice. It's demonstrated in both of the talks, which is pretty rad, I think, for each of you, really. Anyone who's assisted, in Meshery in general, but just on this project itself. So the OSM provisioning and then the validation of its conformance is shown. And so kudos, guys. I know that project got handed off a couple of times between people and that we're almost there. That last part that Drew, if you can, Drew, can you please help me drive Gerald, Prod, Nikhil, and Tanuj, smirking about prodding Nikhil because, but about the presentation of those results on the landscape. Thank you for giving them the JSON they might need. I think Gerald was going to pick it up. He might need some additional context. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, sure. I will contact him.
Thank you. That, you know how the display that you have here in Meshery is fairly detailed. I think we were just identifying maybe it's not detailed enough. But how that's displayed on the landscape initially doesn't have to be as detailed. If there's enough people that show interest, we can expose some of those failure reasons and build that out iteratively. But it would be it would be a really neat thing to be able to show people that these results are being sent in and they're being displayed publicly. And I expect that in the end, we'll probably end up showing those results publicly in 3 places, probably on layer5io/landscape, on meshery.io, and then probably on SMI spec.io as well. So
Okay.
we'll get some use. Anybody else have comments on the SMI conformance stuff before we move on?
Well,
So Shriti, right as you go to talk, I'm going to go ahead and interrupt. I apologize. That wasn't the fun is all on my side of the table on that. Vineet, I wanted to put you on the spot. because again, the fun in doing that is all on this side of the table. Vineet, do you happen to have, it would be nice to tantalize folks here or to show a bit more about SMI conformance since we're talking about it, and how that might be invoked in MeshMap. Do you want to go ahead and show people the latest there?
Actually, currently this is not invoking conformance test.
Oh, okay.
It will.
No, that's fine. Just to show them the UI. Like we don't have
Sure,
to invoke.
sure, I will sure.
So sorry for putting. So while Vineet brings that up, just context for everyone else. There's a collection of contributors who've committed themselves to two projects, Mesh Sync and Mesh Map. And so there's a meeting that happens on Tuesdays that's like semi-open, semi-closed. It's for people who signed in blood to deliver something because it's hard and it takes a commitment to do it. And Vineet is one of those people. So if you're giving blood, I think Vineet, you're what, type O? So that he had to sign with a lot of blood. He's going to show some of that right now. Mesh Map is a visual topology. Mesh Sync is its close cousin. We don't need to describe it all, but hopefully the pictures here will describe it much better. Vineet, I'll let you do the honors. Blood, sweat, and tears. And Vineet, I think you might be muted, Vineet, but if you want to walk people through.
Yeah, sure. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Actually, you can see the UI. Uh, these are all the this is the performance card, and this is the conformance card, and you'll this is where you can see the metrics from Grafana and stuff.
And by the way,
And
are those metrics?
no,
Is that just
this is sample data, not from
okay?
Grafana.
Cool.
We can import that. That is very easy.
Nice.
Just I needed some required props, so that's the reason I pinged you yesterday, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So this will take you to the Grafana uh, 9081 port. Currently, I don't have any instance running, so I just made to go to the same page.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Interesting. It might be that. Yeah. We'll want to chat on that maybe more, but like a small gear icon might make a lot of sense to redirect people to the metrics settings page in case they want to. Yeah. Anyway, lots of things to discuss, I guess, about like how it all would work. But
Right now, only performance test. I'm only invoking the performance test. Uh, like this is what comes up.
it's pretty. Yeah.
Ali, you're saying something?
No, I just I I know that there's a number of people that on this call who take pride in what you're showing because they've been working and working for a long time to see some really really pretty cool things. So I'll just this is good. I'm seeing a little bit of this for the first time as well, which is nice. So just for context for everyone, there's a couple of important components to Meshery that have been missing for a while. Meshery is focused on performance management and trying to help give people easy to use tooling to stand up a service mesh, play with it, learn it. But a lot of that functionality is just for teaching and learning up until the point that mesh sync is brought in, then the lifecycle management becomes a real thing for Meshery. In the meantime, it is the performance management that is real and is useful and people can use here and now. Subsequent to this, there's a different way of visualizing what's going on in the infrastructure. And so Vineeth, if you don't mind just playing with the visual topology, the mesh map a bit. By the way, the
So
name,
what?
oh, I'm going to say the name mesh map here is kind of what is referred to as this component. And that was community named. I think we got together a list of like 15 different suggestions and had people take votes and things. So, so it turns, yeah. So I can no longer be blamed for all the horrible names, but Anirudh, Vineeth, and a collection of others are trying to bring forth really, a new way of visualizing things inside of Meshery. You could think of this particular visualization as being an alternative way to perform the same tasks that you can today. So today you can go run a performance test by filling in a form. Nikhil has been working on bringing forth, and Kush have been working on bringing forth a performance test profile so that you don't have to fill in the same form every time you want to run the same test. And then Vineeth and Dhruv and others, Anirudh, have been working on the ability to come in here and visually invoke such a performance test. So that's what Vineeth is showing is Anirudh has, Vineeth, right now, if you click on one of these nodes, does it provide you the context menu to invoke a performance test?
Right now, I think Anirudh hasn't pushed the changes yet, so it won't do anything. Like it's the same thing. It won't do
Okay.
anything.
That's in progress actually. I'm still facing issues with models.
Models. Okay. But Vineeth, if you would do that one more time, just to give people the sense of what is forthcoming here, is if you wanted to run a performance test against a particular node, or if you wanted to do something else against a particular node, and by node, I mean service, that
Yep.
reviews service. So if you click and hold again, Vineeth, if you click and hold, you'll get a context menu. There you go. And then
So
people can,
these options may invoke some tests. Maybe Lee, I think it's not needed. I guess we anyway provide this options, right? They can invoke them from there.
It's just an
it's a
easier way and quicker way of getting things done.
No, I think anyway the details pane comes up right after we click on a node. So just you click on a node and here we are. Like there's performance test. You can click on it and yes, it comes up. Or am I getting anything wrong?
it's a good discussion. It is often the case that if you think about, like, if you're running on Linux, I think, Beneath,
Yes.
how many different ways can you open up your web browser?
Uh,
There's
fr- Maybe from the terminal many ways.
yeah. Right. There's an icon on your desktop. It's over in the applications drawer.
Yes.
You can do it from the terminal. Anyway, my point is like, yeah, it's an open consideration that we should refine. Like, oh, for certain, like, hey, what's the task at hand for the user? How few clicks can the user execute that task? Okay, it might mean that some prefer the details drawer. Some might prefer the action right on the thing, and it's one of those discussions it'll be probably much better had as we get toward the end of, or the MVP, if you will, for this, because then you'll be able to refine and factor like what all the choices are. Can you play with the details pane for everyone and just get a sense of what the details pane does? outside of
Okay.
invoking actions?
So this is what you see first. It's a overview tab, and actually the other tabs are not filled yet. This is a traffic management tab, and this is security, and this is circuit breaker tab, and this is load balancing tab. These aren't exploded, and this is the only thing we are right now. And this just gives the overview of the node or the service mesh you're on.
Did you expand and collapse this thing? Like show the behavior here?
Yeah.
You might have, and I just missed it. Okay. So it goes away. Okay, when we expand, it kind of repositions the canvas, the map.
Yes.
And then lastly, do you want to speak to, the logs there? What's going on there?
Yeah.
Is that on?
Yeah. Anyone?
Oh, is that Envoy on guard that's down in the now I'm
No, it's
just trying
just
to
my Minikube cluster. Sorry.
oh okay.
I just gave it a raw feed like that. It isn't. It won't do much. We can input the JSON data from maybe by promises and stuff. We can get the data from Kubernetes. It will show up here.
Awesome. So Nitish, that was meant to be a jab at you, a poke at you. What do you
Start
what do
using
you
on guard, right?
it is not using on guard, but that's an open I'm planting the seed in your mind to let you simmer on think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Any feedback for Vineeth? I know Nikhil is just keeping it at bay. Great. Thank you, Vineeth. I wanted to not only kind of catch up with you on this week's focus, but also get some airtime to some of what's here. Let others express opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Now,
And,
are all of the layouts are working right now?
yeah, they're writing from the start. Maybe they're not positioned yet perfectly yet. We can do in that in the long run.
Okay.
And also fix that we had the issue with multiple day rendering that's been done. Everything's fixed with mesh side escape.
Any other comments from the group? Else, Shriti, we're next. We're ready.
All right, if you're done, before moving on, let's call out on some people who've joined the meeting for the first time. Ayush Mansur, would you want to introduce yourself?
Excuse me, should I stop sharing? Anyone needs some kind of
I'm so sorry for muting you, Ayush. There's a lot of background noise on your microphone. And yeah, Vineeth, you can stop sharing. If that's all.
yeah. If no one has anything to say, I'll stop sharing.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Um, Ayush, any better with your audio issues?
No.
Ah, all right. We already heard from Homero. For the sake of everybody's hearing abilities, let's not do that again. Just a joke. I used try and join us when you have sorted out your audio issues. Otherwise, chat works too. Let me welcome back Nitish Malhotra. I think.
Hello, hello.
Hey, I think you're joining a meeting after a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. Just took a hiatus.
Makes sense. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Great. Well, moving forward, Anirudh, would you like to take yours? Anirudh?
Okay, I'm back. So
No issues. Do you want to share your screen or should I?
yeah, I'll share.
Go ahead.
Yes. So this is mainly regarding people who wanted to work on Meshery CTL mesh commands. There are a few commands that can be done as of now. At least I think they can be done. Let me know if they can. So you have mesh list, create or deploy within, like we didn't come up with uh, a fixed one. So if aliasing is possible, keep both. Then it they will Meshery remove and delete. So I added destroy. It sounds better sometimes. And we have Meshery workload. Uh, in workload, we have list and apply. So these commands can be done. Rest the APIs are uh, at least functional for now. So there are some prerequisites. First thing you need to know Golang because obviously you'll have to look into the server for APIs at least for now. Then you need to have some experience with Cobra and Flag. Uh, Usual Flag is actually inherited, so Cobra inherits a flag from Golang flag library. It also has P flag, but you still need to know about flags. And we are using Cobra in Meshery CTL, so bit experience on how Cobra works is good. So and also the architectural idea of Meshery because you're working on the CLI. And these are a few properties of service of basically not so yeah service mesh. So a few properties of service mesh you might have to consider. Namespace, it's basic Kubernetes namespace. The name of service mesh, port and host of service mesh. Type, like I guess I defined it, but I don't know like leash. Should we go with this for adapter type? Type.
Yeah, that's here's an opportunity to potentially use the SMP protos.
Then I'll have to look at those. Like, I didn't find the time for it. Okay, so I'll look into the SMP protos. I'll update this, but we have at least namespace, name, port, host are here. Then you have supported operations, that is supported ops. Uh, then the example workloads or template workloads currently, like for example, you have book info and I guess on some HTTP or something on Istio. Then you have example configurations. These are the template configurations in the UI. So I guess my UI is dumped right now. So let's see if anything else works. Okay, even this is out. Okay. Then here is my approach on how I actually create a command. So that's basically first you have to understand what the command does. And if you have doubts, ask them on Slack, ask me, or the Meshery CTL channel on Slack. Then once you know actually what you need to implement, or what, like, you have the required functionality in mind, then you go for the second step, that is you use a REST client like Postman or any REST client, whichever you prefer. Use it, create a create an API or a request, and ping the Meshery server and see if it reacts to the certain functionality you want it implemented. So this part is critical because here you'll be doing all the logic part. And once you have a API working, or once you have a request that actually interacts with Meshery server and uh, gets the job done, you simply code it into Golang. You change the code. So in Postman, you can export a request on into Golang, and but the first thing you'll have to look into Meshery CTL, find out what you're getting already. So there are global flags for certain stuff, and some you might actually inherit from parent commands. So you'll have to look into that, create a ideology or something for the command structure, and then you write, like, you get flags, you create flags, you create parameters, and finally once you're done with the code, like you created the Go code, you run Meshery. Obviously, you run the binary after make and test it out. And if that is working fine, you simply create a pull request, mention it on Meshery CTL, or ping any, like anyone, literally. Lee, Kush, we need anyone. So this is actually how I get the commands done, in case someone had doubt. So these are all taken from the Meshery. Sorry, where's that? Meshery Visual Topology. Okay, these are all from Meshery's ATL doc. Most of these. And yeah, I guess that's more of what I actually wanted to say. Any comments? Where is Zoom?
And I use this is it's really timely that Anirudh is going through this, because this may very well be an ideal spot for you to make a mark. There's a lot of functionality in Meshery that is yet to be exposed into the Meshery CTL. Anirudh has championed a few new ones. As a matter of fact, Anirudh, I don't know, did you speak to the whole new command experiment and how that works, like what the intended use?
Not yet. New. Okay, the experimental. Are you talking about experimental commands?
Yep.
Yeah, that part is after you get the command working. So if the command, like, it's obviously every command that simply goes into the workflow is not a stable command. We need certain feedback for it, and need to know if people actually use it. Obviously, people will, maybe. Um, so those go under experimental subcommand. Currently, I guess, Lee, can you show the experimental subcommand? I guess the repo is merged. If not,
You betcha. Well, yeah. Um, so a couple of things on my way to showing that. Maybe I'll say, yeah, hey, I should check to see what version of Meshery CTL I have. And by the way, there's been some enhancements here recently where when you go to check Meshery CTL's version, it'll check the client and finally the server as well. It'll also supposedly check for the latest version of Meshery out on GitHub. And anyway, in my environment, for some reason that's failing. But to what Anirudh had done is Anirudh had been working on some net new commands. And that's a little bit different than augmenting existing commands. The net new commands can be, well, uh, released a little bit more willy-nilly, if you will, or done in a more iterative fashion where they aren't necessarily guaranteed to work. They are experimental. And so Anirudh has championed the kind of the creation of this experimental namespace um, behind which uh, the um, the up and coming command and its intended structure would be laid out. So the first one that is the first experimental command that's being worked on right now is one called mesh. So there's a lot that Meshery does around service mesh lifecycle management. And so the command, the thought is that that structure would be Meshery CTL, mesh, and then things that you want to do to a service mesh. And so of the initial subcommand there is validate. And actually, very much, it is exactly the thing that Dhruv was showing earlier. Well, the validate can be useful for a few different things. It can validate configuration best practices of a service mesh, or it could validate the SMI conformance of a mesh, or maybe, or there's a few other use cases to come. Anirudh, do you want to talk further about the structure of this command, or like
Yeah, so the whole Meshery CTL mesh commands is basically manipulating the service meshes through adapters on Meshery. So we already UI can do that. We don't have a way on having Meshery CTL do that, at least for now. But the REST APIs are pretty simple. So you can do a lot more with CLIs as compared with UI, because you can simply create an automation script that does everything through the CLI. And achieving that, I started working on Meshery CTL mesh. This basically is service mesh lifecycle, and you create a service mesh, you delete it, you configure it by passing con- either a JSON or pass in a template which has already been predefined. Um, so that's more on exactly what service mesh, like at least what Meshery CTL mesh is, and we're working on those. Like we need at least the functionality of UI, and once we're done with that, we will try to improve Meshery CTL further than the UI if possible, because it's like you can do a lot through automation, which I guess wouldn't be that much possible by the UI.
that was great. This is great. So it's a good way to, I don't think that Anirudh, that you necessarily had a chance to kind of explain and demonstrate the purpose of the experimental command. I want to say something other than command, but that namespace, if you will, for up and coming new commands, and the mesh validate being the first one at bat. And that, yeah, I think that it's true that there's a REST API, that there's a Meshery server has a REST API that the Meshery UI, which I'm going to show now, maybe some things that people haven't seen just yet either. Am I sharing my whole screen now? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. That to Anirudh's point that this Meshery UI, it's a client of Meshery server's REST API, just like Meshery CTL is a client of Meshery server's REST API. They're both clients. To Anirudh's point, it's if you wanted to automate something, it's a little, you can write your own scripts or your own applications that interface with Meshery's REST API. And it can be a client, just like these two examples that we see. But it is also the case that people generally find it fairly easy to do a bash script or something else another script around a CLI. And so in some respects, to the extent that people do that, the CLI almost becomes a bit of an API, or like it bears the same sort of contract, if you will, in terms of moving the cheese on people or switching up the commands in the command structure. Nitish had been an individual in the community that had been helping ensure that we're being forward thinking about the structure of the commands so that we don't significantly change it over time and screw up both the user experience for people, because you get comfortable running in certain commands, and then to the extent you write scripts around them as well, if we go and change their structure, I can have an issue. And so that's in part the reason that Anirudh was bringing forth this experimental area, is to signal to people like this is alpha beta area. So, user be warned in terms of functionality, but also in terms of the potential syntax shifting over time. So one item that I don't know if Kush is on or not, or Pratik Tripathi. Oh, Pratik, there you are. So Pratik, one item that of the pull request that you were just working on Meshery CTL with respect to Meshery version, one item to convey that you might convey to Kush is that Utkarsh had recently landed some new functionality, and it shows up in the UI here, and it's beginning to tell people what version of Meshery they're running, what release channel they're subscribed to, and Kush was trying to make sure that we're not repeating ourselves in terms of there's a specific library or a specific function that the Go code uses to look up the latest release on GitHub, take that version number, the release tag vx.x.x, and compare that tag to the currently running server. And that way, it'll tell people you're up to date or you're not. Now that refactoring, so that code was last week, it was in Meshery CTL. And so the CTL, the command line client itself, when you run Meshery CTL version, it has the ability to just look up its own version and talk to the server if available. But irrespective of whether or not the server is available, it has the ability to reach out to GitHub directly. And I believe as part of changes from yesterday, it might be the case, I don't know, we have to go look at, it might be the case that the client no longer speaks to GitHub directly, but rather wants to check on the latest version of Meshery through Meshery server and then to GitHub, which is an issue if Meshery server isn't running. The user here should still be able to check to see if they're running the latest version. So it's something to investigate. I'm not sure where the logic lie right now. So, but that's it. I mean, yeah. So do we have any other, and Pratik, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Also, I asked Anirudh today itself to kind of demonstrate all Meshery CTL commands that we're planning to do. So yes, I will look into it for ahead. And sorry for my bad voice. I'm just having a little bit of cold still.
How dare you? Yeah, I hope you feel better. I know you'd said you were sick earlier this week. So.
I do this. No, thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Any other topics that we had today, Shriti?
Nope. I think that's all. Any other topics? Anybody? We have 4 minutes to go. If
Yeah,
not,
so
yeah, go ahead.
Lee, can you open up server.go in Meshery repo? I mean, I haven't bought it up. Like, so the thing is, in case anyone's working, if anyone's using the APIs, the right way or the right area to look into is this place. So you can see the routers, and you can get the functions that perform certain actions. If in case you want to understand how the APIs work, currently we don't have an API documentation, and that's upcoming. Uh, so till then, it's better if you if you need hints on how the APIs work, you look into this server.go, and if you still don't get it, then you can simply ping on Slack. Like the important ones for anyone working on service mesh, at least sorry, Meshery CTL mesh commands would be API mesh manage, API mesh ops, and API mesh adapter. So anything API mesh is considered under service mesh lifecycle, and you might want to use this, as that's like the most important thing at the last.
Good. I use meet Anirudh. If
Hi,
you're in,
Ayush.
yeah.
Hi, is my voice working now?
Yep. Yeah. 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 Nice to. It's good to have you, Ayush. Um, that's it.
To be honest, like this stuff like kind of blowing my mind. I don't understand like 1% of it, but hopefully would understand in some time.
I was I was at 1% a year ago, so like it only takes a year. Like you'll be by the time school's out, you'll be yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal. Shridi, take us home.
All right. Anirudh, anything else?
Nah, so I guess that's more of it. Anyone has any doubts, feel free to ask me or on Slack channel, and uh, hopefully we get Meshery ATL mesh in a week, if possible.
All right. That's it then. Thanks for coming in, everybody. See you next week.
I guess. Oh.
Maybe.